7 a.m., Base Falcon, Baghdad. Before 2011, this was an American military base. Now, Kataib Sayd al-Shuhada, an armed group with close ties to Iran, trains here, preparing for Iraq's next war.
We're prepared to fight, whether it's against America, ISIS, or terrorism. We stand ready for any war in the country.
This isn't the group's official position. A media officer quickly brings the soldier into line. Kataib Sayd al-Shuhada is part of the Popular Mobilization Forces, or the PMF, an umbrella group of mostly Shia militias that mobilized in 2014 to fight the Islamic State group. The PMF was a crucial ground force that helped win the war, but many units, including this one, were accused of human rights abuses. Despite years at the front, the 400 soldiers who train here appear to lack basic military etiquette. A 2016 law nominally incorporated the PMF into the armed forces. Amid rising US-Iran tensions and increased pressure from the Trump administration, Iraq's prime minister recently passed a decree to integrate the PMF more closely. Officially, the name Kataib Sayd al-Shuhada no longer exists. It is now called Brigade 14, but some uniforms still bear the old insignia. Off-camera, the group calls itself an Islamic resistance movement. Fighters are not soldiers, but mujahideen, those who wage holy war.
We thank God that our mujahideen are present here in Brigade 14. Our best men volunteered to defend the Iraqi soil and its holy sites.
Songs hail Ali and Hussein, successors of the Prophet Muhammad revered by Shia Muslims. In the commander's office, the Kataib Sayd al-Shuhada flag remains hoisted, and although a picture of Iran's supreme religious authority Ali Khamenei hangs on the wall, Abu Karim al-Ibrahimi claims to follow only the prime minister's orders.
We're here to defend Iraq's pride and sovereignty under the command of the prime minister.
And yet, the group's hostility towards America is palpable.
The Americans only think about their own economic interests without much consideration or respect for our country. If there's any meddling in the sovereignty of our nation, we will engage according to the orders that we receive.
The U.S. Embassy in Baghdad and the spokesperson for the U.S.-led coalition against ISIS in Iraq and Syria declined to be interviewed for this report. The prospect of war between Iranian-backed groups and the U.S. weighs heavily on the minds of Iraqis.
We'll end up paying the price, and Iraq will be affected.
Nasser Walid Ali served in the Iran-Iraq war in the 1980s. The country has been embroiled in conflicts ever since.
I was injured 4-5 times. We've lived a very difficult life, and it's still very hard. The situation is even worsening as time goes by.
Nasser is the guardian of the cemetery in the Sunni neighborhood of Adamiyah. Most of those buried here, including Nasser's father, are victims of the sectarian violence that followed the 2003 American invasion. Then came the IS group, and now Iraqis, especially Sunnis, fear that the PMF has become too powerful to control.
We will never be able to find a solution for the militias. They control everything. How do you expect this situation to ever get resolved?
The PMF has converted its battlefield gains in the war against the IS group into economic and political power. Its political wings control the biggest bloc in parliament, a factor some analysts believe could be a deterrent to attack American interests.
Iran won't use its allies in Iraq for any military action. They fear an adverse reaction from the United States, which would then be detrimental to Tehran's interest. So that's why they are only using their allies in Iraq politically.
There is growing opposition to Iran's political influence too. These young men are ardent followers of Muqtada Sadr, an influential Shia cleric whose bloc won last year's elections on a nationalistic platform. They all heeded his call to protests to pass a clear message to both America and Iran.
We refuse to engage in wars that will harm the Iraqi people, and that's a message for both the Iranians and the Americans.
They welcomed the Prime Minister's latest decree to rein in the unruly elements of the PMF.
This is the last chance for these governments to prove their good intentions towards the Iraqis and to get rid of all the uncontrolled elements on Iraqi soil.
For now, the PMF appears to benefit just enough from its integration into Iraq's security apparatus to fall in line. But should there really be a war between the US and Iran, many here doubt that these forces will remain in the barracks.